Jeff is back to interviewing artists and writers on Everything is Awesome. He and his guests cover social issues from a leftist perspective. Check out all his many works at jeffsawesomepods.com. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Some Spoiled, a song of ice and fire. To the co-host Switcheroo the Rereading, Return to Westeros HBO Spoiler Edition. I cut it, I censor it a little bit, but it is definitely too hot for TV. Bringing you the greatest hits from a year, I think 2000. Do not call in with your requests. This episode, we are covering chapters 30 and 31, Jon and Jaime. In these chapters, Jon is watching some men try to scale the wall, and it goes not great for them. And Jaime has a rotting hand hanging around his neck, and a very painful infected stump.
Yeah.
Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am
the king! Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
All right. So, thankfully, the Jaime chapter ends with him, like, getting some medical treatment. I get, like, this anxiety around certain things, you know? The Jon chapter, though, we just get to watch some people fall from a great height. Yeah. And that's a whole other kind of anxiety for me. Oh, y'all. I can't even, like, watch... Oh, he's playing Elden Ring, Owen is. And there are these things that basically, like, he can run his horse right off the side of a cliff, and this wind will catch the horse and keep it from, like, crashing to its death. But every time he jumps off the cliff, I physically contract and have to look away. Mm-hmm. So just imagining, I don't understand people who like climbing like this. That's really what it comes down to. Couldn't be me. How did you feel about these chapters?
Whenever we have these, and we've had a couple in the series so far, where we're following our, characters up some mountain pass with treacherous heights and, rocks crumbling on the side of the path where it looks like they might go down, but they don't actually, Mm-hmm. And I did not enjoy them in the past, and I did not enjoy it this time.
Yep.
Like you, I am in my opinion, overly sensitive to heights. I feel like it's ridiculous.
Same.
I don't know why my brain does not, I don't know why my brain loses all logic when heights are involved. It doesn't make any sense.
It's a video game. Why am I reacting like I'm actually falling? I don't know.
Exactly. Yep. I have the same thing when I'm watching TV. If someone is up high and the camera sort of pans over and you get an idea of how high up they are, mm-hmm. and oftentimes that's used on purpose because they are trying to create tension. So that's why you get those shots. But sometimes it's just the fucking perspective of whatever is being filmed.
Yes.
And that is even worse for me. Me and Steven were watching that Beatles documentary that was on, I can't remember if it was Apple or Disney, but the documentary, and it was really good. We loved every minute of it. But the sort of culmination of it is the performance that they do on top of the Abbey Road Studios.
Okay. And
they're just playing on the roof. And me and Steve both are very familiar with this moment in history and in music and, and all that. So we know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
It comes, and both of us are like, halfway shielding our eyes from the screen.
So Steve is the same way.
Yeah, he's got to think about heights too. That
Okay.
has gotten increasingly worse the older that we get, but he's always had to think about heights as well. So this chapter, you know, we're getting a really up close description of just how treacherous the wall is, how big it is, and all this other stuff. And then you're reading it, and you're like, okay, well, I get it. They're setting the fucking stage. You know, they gotta try to impress upon us the, you know, how immense the wall is. You know, you really gotta get a feel for it. But then people fucking fell and died.
Yeah.
And I was just feeling away, you know, feeling a way about it.
And they fall due to no fault of their own. It's not even like they did something stupid or wrong. It's just the fucking wall.
That's just how dangerous it is, you know. And the fact that it's Jarl who dies, I was like, it was unexpected for me because it was feeling like. Even Jon was also feeling like this guy knows what the fuck he's doing. This is not his first rodeo. You know what I mean? They're prepared for this action. And they were prepared for it. And they did really well. And, you know, they used the trees to get up even higher than they normally would have. And without having to deal with the slog of climbing, you know, 300 feet straight up. And you're reading it and you're like, oh, that's ingenious. And then it doesn't fucking matter because it's ice and that shit is not like Jon points out, you know, climbing up stone and climbing up ice are entirely two different fucking things. And that shit just crumbles and they go, you know, plummeting, not just to fall on the ground and die, but this motherfucker is impaled on a tree, which is just unnecessarily rude. And they're all tied together because that's what you do when you go climbing. So that's the other thing about climbing too, like the trust you have to have in your partners.
I know, right? Do you remember that Seinfeld episode where
Of course I
just
do.
Bouncing from side to side, yelling?
Of course I do.
George is clinging to the rock,
trying to pass a goddamn tuna sandwich or some shit.
Because I know you don't like peanut butter. Oh, God.
What is he? Step off, George. Step off.
Step off?
Except Tony. When he tells George, when George comes to try to make up and he's all banged up in the lanes and his face is all in bandages, and George is so sorry, tells her to step off. Me? Step off?
His face! Did anything happen to his face?
There's that same episode that's got the fucking, he's a membo. And then Jerry does the, Tony. I'm Tony. He's like popping his collar.
Tony. But since then, people have said himbo, and it really was right there. He really should have been a himbo. Come on, Jerry.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a fucking missed opportunity.
Definitely.
But so the Jon, and that's pretty much the whole fucking Jon chapter.
Yeah,
it's just this. Oh my god, fucking Magdar though, like low key relishing this turn of event.
He isn't like he's like also on the ground watching them climb, going, "Oh, they're so slow. Why don't they go faster?" And Jon has to like bite his tongue because he's like, because this is a really fucking hard thing to do that you clearly have never done before. So shut the fuck up. But he's not gonna get.
That's always the fucking case too, right? Like the guy that's never fucking done the thing is going to be the loudest person about how everybody is doing the thing wrong. The thing that he has no idea how to do and has never done before in his life.
100%.
It's really easy to be, like, have both feet on the ground looking up at that shit and have a lot of fucking suggestions.
Yep. So, okay. And there's, like, a bit where he's, like, wondering whether Ghost understood what he said. I think, again, he probably did.
There's also this thing going on with Jon where he is, because it's clear that as long as he is with the fucking wildlings, this is going to be a recurring theme for him because he's just so conflicted. So he's doing this thing where he's like watching the wall and like hoping Night's Watch will be there.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll pop up and like and see what's happening, but it never happens. There is no one watching.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like, part of him is like, well, I guess that's good, because like what would I do? Like, just, you know, go back to Castle Black and what? I'm going to bring this chick with me? Like,
yeah.
A, that wouldn't work, and B, she probably wouldn't even come in the first place. And I'm a traitor, even though, like, you know, I'm like a double agent traitor, but like most people would know that. And I've got no proof that I'm a traitor, because the person that told me to do this is dead now. You know? So like, I could, there's no reason for the Night's Watch to believe that he is really undercover. Like, it looks like he fucking joined up with the Wildlings.
Straight up. Yeah.
Like, there's nobody to vouch for him. I think I mentioned it before when we first started talking about this, that how this reminds me of the thing in that Kurt Vonnegut story where the lead character is undercover in Nazi Germany as a traitor to the United States. You know, he's an American living in Germany that does a propaganda show and is very high up in the sort of like the Third Reich. But he is working undercover for the U.S. government and is supplying like intel through this radio program that he's doing. But he has no proof. And the war ends, and he's basically low-key a war criminal. And can't, like, and the only person, he had, like, one contact in the U.S. government, and he doesn't even know the agent's real name. So there's no way to, like, be like, hey, call Agent Smith. He'll fucking totally vouch for me. Like,
oh, man. I don't think you have mentioned that.
Yeah, it's, that is a story from, the book is called Mother Night.
Okay.
But, but that makes me think a little bit about, and then the book itself goes into a lot of other things, like, you know, yeah, you were a traitor and you were working like for the good of the United States, but but what about the harm you did in that role, and does that matter,
right,
and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so Jon is just in this really strange position of being kind of like, he's aligned with the Night's Watch, you know, morally. But he's working actively with the free folk, and so he's kind of like a man, like between nations or without a nation, or you know. So he's like hoping that, like, he doesn't want them to fall. Like, he's not like you know, rejoicing that these men plummeted to their deaths. Like, it's, you know, it's horrifying. Yeah. But also, he was low-key wishing the Night's Watchmen would show up and then, like, kick these guys or dump a pail of rocks over their heads.
I really do like that he considers, like, if they did, what would I do? Because that's always my thought. It's just like, you allegedly want this thing. But I don't feel like you've really considered what that would mean. And I did appreciate his just being like, oh, wait, what would how would that even work out for me? None of these options is good, is what it comes down to. Yeah. And my God, you know, it's I'm trying to think like what comes next for this story, for the storyline, like when they go back to the wall. I know that Jon ends up back at the wall from the show, right? And I don't know. I am thinking that it plays very differently, because by the time we got to that point in the show, they were pretty much off book, I think. Yeah, well, it's hard to say, because nothing really lines up in the same place. Yeah, so I don't know how much of what I saw on the show is going to be what's in the book, or how different it will be, you know, especially regarding, like, what happens to Ygritte on the show. And if that's what happens to her here in the book or not. But the closer they get to the wall, the more I find myself being like, wait, no, don't. Turn around, go a different way. I appreciate that. See, he's doing his job, I guess. George R. R. Martin, not Jon. Yeah. So, yeah, and the description of, like, I mean, they have got their... equipment, of what, like, for climbing this wall.
Oh yeah, these dudes are about it.
Yeah.
They are ready. They've got basically, I don't know what you really call them, but like they're like cleats, but more, like the shoes they have with the spikes in the sole to make, scaling the wall. They've got their whole rope situation. They got their little pickaxes and their little stakes. They're fucking ready. This group has done this before, we find out. Mm-hmm. Also, I want to just mention how long this shit goes on for. It's like 6 to 8 hours that they're just watching them scale up this fucking wall.
Yes. I appreciate you mentioning that, because it's so easy to just think that the Magnar was getting impatient after half an hour. Mm-hmm. But it's hours and hours, which makes the fact that they get thrown down and die even worse, more painful.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, Jarl and his crew of, like, I think it's like 4-man teams or whatever, like 3-4-man teams tied together by ropes. Mm-hmm. So his group goes up first, and they're making hella good time. It's really impressive how they're moving up this wall, and the other two groups are significantly behind them. And then there is a misstep, and Jarl drops, but his other guys are still hanging on. So he's pulling a Kramer, where he's just sort of like, and they have to kind of like yank him back up. So they lose a lot of time with that, but they recover, Mm-hmm. And it gives the other two groups an opportunity to make some good time to catch up to where his group is. Mm-hmm. But they're all on the ground watching Jarl like fall, and there's just big crack, and everybody is just like, this is terrible. When he goes down for real. And when the crack happens and his group go down, it's like chunks of ice flying from hundreds of feet in the air.
Yeah.
To the point where Jon it has to like dive and tackle her. It's like push her out of the way. And somebody takes like a chunk of ice to the fucking face and like breaks her nose or some shit, Like the scope of this, the scale of this is difficult to kind of imagine.
I can't. I really can't. I don't remember if it happens exactly like this on the show. I think that this part does, but I don't remember like what it looked like. Probably because I had my hands over my eyes. Honestly. Yeah, probably, right? This
feels definitely like a moment where I would have checked my phone.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, just trying to imagine, and I guess because I have not, though this is something a lot of people may have done, it's definitely an experience that's out there, for the having if you're willing. I have no interest in mountain climbing, clearly, but I also have no interest in mountain hiking or mountain walking. I just no interest in it. I just don't. I have no interest in anything mountains are bringing to the table. But I imagine that, like, if you're one of those people, you would know what it feels like. Like, you did, like, some weird mountain shit when you were in Guatemala or whatever, right? Where you have the feeling of being at the base of something and then traveling however many, whatever distance, and then being, like, up top to look down at where you've come from. The closest I have to that experience are 2 baby mountains. They're like hills. Tops. And that is Stone Mountain, Georgia. And then when I lived in South Carolina, there was an elevation called, what the fuck was it called? Something Rest. I forget the name of the town. But there's a little mountain there that we would go to. Like, you go to the top of it and fucking make out or drink beer or smoke pot or whatever you're going to do. Nice. Whenever you get there, there's always like a little fire pit from the night before of whoever was hanging out there,
Yeah. And
you can kind of look down on the town. Traveler's Rest, that's what it was called. Sorry, guys. My brain, in the meantime, was like, bitch. But again, these are nothing compared to anybody who has any real experience with this. Those are the 2 closest I've ever come, and I did not care for either.
Yeah, I feel like over the years I've started to have more of an appreciation for hiking. I used to hike because it was just a thing that my mom liked to do, and then eventually that people were doing in programs I was in. But recently, after having like lived in the city and realizing how much I love being outside and how much it lifts my mood, I have grown to like it more, but it really has to be tame these days for me. Like, I miss Sleeping Giant in Connecticut and New Haven. It's like a walk up a hill with like graveled paths. Mm-hmm. That's my speed these days.
That's kind of how Stone Mountain is.
Yeah.
It's just more of a rustic, jaunt up a slight incline.
Exactly. Yep. And at Sleeping Giant, there's like a little like tower at the top that you can climb up, and it's like 4 stories high, and it really gives you quite an amazing view. So it feels like there's something at the end of the hike that's rewarding. But a lot of hikes, it's just sort of like, well, when you get to the top, there's a view out through this one little like patch of trees, and it's the one spot that's like cool. So everybody hiking goes to that exact same kind of cramped place, and it can be kind of anticlimactic sometimes. And yeah, I just need a destination. I need somewhere to be going to,
For you, it is not about the journey, it is about the destination.
Yeah, a little bit.
That is very brave of you to acknowledge and admit out loud in this live, laugh, and love economy.
Oh, God. Yeah, there was I remember when I was a kid, we hiked up Mount Washington, and it's 2 miles one way, and I was probably like 9. I was so wiped. I really remember though that it like one of the at the time, with the understanding of nutrition that my parents had, they were like, okay, we've got to bring fuel for this hike because it's going to be intense. Nutter Butters. Get as many Nutter Butter cookies as you can fit into this fanny pack. And I was in heaven every time we took a break, and I got to eat Nutter Butter cookies. And then we got to the top, and it is like so cold and so windy and snowy that there's a sort of like indoor area that they have built up there with like hot food inside, because everybody is just like, I don't think so by the time they get up there. And we had intended to hike back down, and my mom was like, no. And we took the train down. They have a little train. And I remember as a kid being delighted.
The train, like, I feel like that's not safe. You took a train down a mountain?
It's not as down a mountain as it sounds like.
Okay.
Like, it probably, if you saw it, you would see what I meant. But
okay,
it was nice to just be able to sit on my ass, and then we're at the car. It was a real nice little bit. So anyway, I recommend Mount Washington to those who really need a destination and don't feel like retracing their steps and turning around and like coming straight back through shit they've already come through. So you could take a train. It's fine.
Yeah. I really appreciate your mom too, making the smart executive decision of being like, hiking back down the way we just came up is ridiculous and meaningless, and I just won't be a part of it.
And what was so funny was the whole thing was her idea to begin with. She was the one who wanted to hike because she was super into that. But I think that she really underestimated how it was going to be, because we took the like easy path. It's longer. The faster path is like 1.25 miles, but it's like straight up kind of thing. So she was like, all right, we'll take it easy, it won't be so bad. And she just didn't really she had never done something that intense before and underestimated it. 2 miles doesn't sound like that much, but when you're in that kind of terrain,
2 miles going up, even if you're going up slowly, is still 2 miles going up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would just really rather not. Thank you though,
but no.
For the invitation. There's a thing too I love when they're talking about the wall, Jon and Ygritte, and she has this reaction to it, and she's just like, the closer they get to the wall, the more freaked out she seems to be. Period.
Yes.
Right, which I love and kind of want to have a little bit more not conversation, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, what's going on there. But she says at one point, like, how much she hates it, and it's not just hate like I'm afraid of it, it's hate like I am angry and would, undo it all if I could.
Exactly.
And she says can you feel how cold it is? And fucking Jon Snow is like, well, it's made of ice.
I swear to God. This boy.
What are you
Somebody
doing?
come and get him. I'm tired of it. Sir.
She just, has to just, like, she should have just walked away.
Yes.
In my estimation, she should have looked at him, given him the fucking Liz Lemon deepest, longest eye roll imaginable, and then walked away without saying a single fucking word. But she tells him that he doesn't know anything, and then she says that this wall is made of blood.
Which, honestly, that line kind of got me a little bit.
I mean, considering that we just watched a bunch of people, fall to their death, I feel like she's on to something.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's
and
just
what it was like building it,
what it was like building it. All the people who have died over the years trying to cross it. Also, like in a less literal sense, the sort of you have this thing, right? This physical thing that is literally dividing people, right?
Right.
And depending on what side of it that you exist determines like your alliances, right? Mm-hmm. And that just because you're on this side of the wall and I'm on that side of the wall, that automatically means that we are so different that you're practically not even human.
Exactly.
If you're on the wrong side of this wall. And I think it's in the same space here, or it might be a little bit later, when somebody says, I think it's Jon Snow, where he talks about, it's Jon, because he's remembering something that Ned told him about the wall being the end of the world.
Yeah.
Where is that? And Jon even thinks to himself, like, it probably really depends on what side of the wall that you're on.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. He's just, Jon needed to be exposed to some other POVs here.
Yeah.
He really clearly, it's like all just revelatory to him.
Mm-hmm. He says, he remembers that Ned says to him that no wall can keep you safe, because Ned is talking about the brave men that man the wall, and he's like, a wall is only as strong as the men who defend it. And this is when Jon is thinking that even though the wildlings have so many more people, it would only take a handful of Night's Watchmen to defend the wall, because they would be in a position of advantage, right? They'd be like looking down at people trying to come across the wall, and they could just take them out easy peasy. But yeah, this idea of how dangerous, or maybe dangerous isn't the right word, the legacy of this wall does not hit Jon Snow the way it does other people, until, to your point, someone explicitly says it to him.
Because he's very tiring. Okay.
He's all like, don't worry, the worst is behind us. First of all, you are in no position to make that statement.
Yeah. Yeah, because when they finally make it over, she has tears in her eyes.
Yeah, she is terrorized by this journey over the wall. And
she says that it's not fear. Which, I agree with you. I think it is fear. She's just, But she says, I'm crying because we never found the Horn of Winter. We opened 100 graves and let all those shades loose in the world and never found the Horn of Joramun to bring this cold thing down. Which, I found that kind of interesting, that, the goal to destroy it was such a priority in terms of thinking that it was such a real thing, apparently. This is not a legend. We're actually going to go out there and search for this horn, because we really do believe that it is a thing that exists and can help us.
Yeah, I didn't really get that it was a real search either. And I'm not certain if, from this little bit here, I can't tell if this is just how she's taking it, or if how she's feeling is much more common among the whole group, Yeah. Did everybody take the search as seriously as she took it, and are they as upset that it failed as she is? Or was this more just for lack of a better expression, a sort of like child's tale that she took more to heart than she should have. Like, I really don't know.
Do you have any guesses about it? Like, what is your feeling?
I think that, to answer my question about whether the entire group took it as seriously as she did, I don't think that they did. I feel like maybe the people who were in charge weren't as invested in it being a real thing that could be found, that could, like, save the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She also is really not still. Well, she's still in a moment of shock from the actual climbing of the wall, which they accomplish by these rope ladders that are thrown over when one of the groups finally does make it to the top after drawing them like fall.
Mm-hmm.
And when she gets to the top, she's still shaking, and she's just like, I almost fell. Like, I fucking almost fell 3 fucking times. It was like the wall was trying to shake me off. I could feel it. Like, it was a living thing that was actively trying to prevent her from scaling it.
Yeah.
So yeah, she has just had an entirely different experience than anyone else who I've heard talk about it so far.
Yeah. It's really kind of like, it's interesting to me because of well, first of all, when you hear like, oh, they have a ladder, it's so easy to be like, oh, well, that's a lot easier. Mm-hmm. I don't know if any of y'all have ever tried to climb a ladder that's just straight up vertical, but that is so hard. It is literally, there is a machine in the gym to simulate climbing a ladder at my old gym because it is that hard. So still not at all an easy thing, even if you have one. Mm-hmm. But the idea that, like, I am so scared of heights anyway. And the idea that you are climbing up something that's changing the way that ice does, the way Jon describes. And, like, again, already, I don't like climbing. And now we're going to add, it's a changing thing that can shift at any time. Extra hate it. And then Grit is like, it's basically alive and doesn't want you here. All of this combined, absolutely fucking not. Nope. I will find another way. I will risk the children underneath.
I was going to say, I'd rather go to those fucking tunnels.
Exactly.
Fuck all of this.
Yep. 100%. Just, count me out. I'll take the train. Anyway, okay. So, by sunset, 2 of the Fens had fallen from the ladder to their deaths, but they were the last. It was near midnight before Jon reached the top. The stars were out again, and Grit was trembling from the climb. And we go from here to Jaime.
Yeah.
So, Jaime's section is, I gotta tell you guys, reading this now, it is so very clear that the Freys have changed sides, that Bolton has changed sides, but I just didn't see it in the first read-through, and I can't believe I didn't see it. You know, I'm reading it now, I'm like, man, it was all over. I don't want to say he was broadcasting it, because that makes it feel like he was... Broadcasting sometimes feels like it means they were bad at playing their cards close to their chest as a writer. And I don't mean that. I just mean, you know, he wasn't even really trying to hide what was happening. And I still just... yeah, well, there I am. So what did you think of Jaime's chapter?
I mean, it was, you know, again, it's just a lot of... It's a lot, because I'm listening to you say like how clear it is that he, you know, that the Freys and the Boltons have like switched side, and I'm reading it and I don't know if I 100% realized it. Like the way Bolton plays this is because fucking Brienne doesn't seem to understand.
No, she does not.
But she
Brienne
is
also
looking,
like the sweet summer child that I was when I first read it.
yeah, she's looking only at surface stuff, like the flags that are flying, right? And she's, and then Bruce Bolton doesn't come right out and be like, oh, you're my prisoner now. He actually, like, has her sent to, like, nice accommodations and to get cleaned up. And she's trying to, tell Roose, like, the horrible things that these men were about to do to her. And he doesn't actually admonish them, but he's just like, yeah, well, I'll, it's going to be fine. I'll look into all that. So as I was reading it, I was like, okay, this feels like, because I know that he turns, right? Or I have an idea that he turns. I don't know the particulars about how that happens, but I know it's going to happen. So I've always been kind of like, when do we know? When do we see? When does it come out? For sure. And I imagine that it doesn't get confirmed until the actual deed is being done, right? That's when we know for sure that he's turned. I don't know if that's how it's going to be or not, but that's what I've been assuming.
I can't tell you.
So I read this, and I'm not going to lie and be like, I was like, oh, there it is. I see it clearly, because that's not how it was for me. But it was definitely like, this reaction that he's having to Jaime being delivered to him is not the reaction I would have expected for one of Rob's bannermen. Like, this is a huge deal. The Kingslayer is being, delivered to your doorstep with minimal effort required of you.
Yeah.
He's shown up beaten and shackled and, But then also, like, he's being really sort of, being very sort of neutral about Brienne as well, which is, a captive that you think he would, or not a captive, but like Brienne is more complicated, because while she is riding on behalf of Catelyn Stark, she did steal a prisoner from Robb.
That's true.
So I just think, so his reaction to her being there was also just like, that doesn't seem like what I would have expected.
Yeah, it's all weird.
But the majority of this chapter is Jaime dealing with the loss of his hand, and every bit of that was just terrible. From the description of how it hurts, even though it doesn't exist anymore, and all this phantom pain, to the fact that these men are just kicking him in the stump.
Yeah.
Which is so painful that he just blacks out from the pain. Like, he blacks out like 12 times in this chapter.
He does, though. This is just, it is really hard to read in a lot of places. And he's like crying over it at one point, and he hears the men like laughing at him, and he has to make himself stop crying. Yeah,
can you imagine? Like, if you can't cry over having your hand fucking cut off, then, like, what? Why?
Yeah.
But here we are.
Indeed.
He's also thinking a lot about Tyrion. And, like, is this what he felt like? And do I now understand what he's felt like all those years?
The answer is no.
Yeah, I feel like that
is
a resounding no. But, isn't that like not to downplay the brutality and the significant loss to Jaime by losing his right hand, his sword hand, and all that. It's terrible. It's tragic. It's brutal. Not taking anything away from all that. However, it does not equate a lifetime. It does not equate to a lifetime.
No, not at all.
Of someone's lived experience. So maybe calm down with that. Oh, I too know oppression. It's given that.
Oh my God. They used to make fun of me.
Then they do this thing too when fucking poor Jaime is just a mess. He can't even stay in his fucking saddle properly. So they end up putting him and Brienne both on one horse, and then tying them face to face and making a big joke about that. Oh, the lovers. And then we've got his fucking dismembered hand hanging between them as they ride. It is just really
grotesque.
Really grotesque. Yes, good word for it. And it's not really... It is not the kind of content that I am generally here for. I don't really enjoy when things are over the top. Over the top, either in violence or horror or grotesqueness or anything like that. Like, I have a very short fuse for that kind of material. So, this was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, agreed. I was just glad because, like, okay. This is all happening. And eventually he hears the men coming to rape Brienne.
Yep, because that's been on the table.
For a minute. It's honestly kind of surprising it's taken this long.
Yeah, they're just like... and we get a whole explanation for how it ends up being stopped. And... I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this, really. It's, I don't want to make it into a whole thing, but it's, the constant rape refrain. I understand that this is, like, something that goes on through the duration of these books. I don't know, guys. I just don't know. I don't know. But, yeah, so they're plotting... They're finally going to get around to raping her, and the discussion about it is obviously very gross. There's even talk about, like, who's going to, like, what order they're going to go in, and then, like, who's going, like, oh, well, it's, like, why don't we both go? One from the front and one from the back, and then there's, like, an argument about who gets to be in what position, and Jaime Jaime does this thing where he's, like, leaning over and trying to comfort/advise her of the best way to get through this without dying.
Yeah.
Which is to just lay there and take it and try to put your mind someplace else, you know? Separate yourself from your body for what's about to happen.
I guess.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to do something helpful. I mean, you know, like, I guess he's just in this position where he knows that there's nothing material he can do. So he's trying to, like, pull from his own trauma of watching some people get burned alive as an informed way to... But it's, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is.
And I think that happens... The sort of trying to reassure her happens later in the chapter, because one of the first things that we get in this Jaime chapter is him feeling like he can't go a minute more. Right? He has given up. He is ready for them to fucking just kill him. This is too much. To the point where he actually tries to steal a sword off of one of them and attempt to, I don't know, fight. And it's pitiful for a host of reasons. You know, he is in no shape to be holding a sword, period. Not to mention, it's in his, like, his left hand. And so it becomes sort of a laughing show, and they basically just laugh at him and put him on his ass. And he just lays there, willing, being like, well, I guess this is it. I can just die here. And Brienne comes over to him and is just like, what are you doing? You have to live, when he says, I'm dying. And she gets him to agree that he's not quite ready to die by calling him craven, which apparently is an insult that even at this late stage of the game is enough to, like, make him be like, yep, nope, not that though.
Yep.
I'm a lot of fucking things, but I'm not a fucking coward. And yeah, she kind of talks life back into him. And then shortly after that...
Live for spite. Come on. Yeah.
And it's after that conversation where he decides that, yeah, this is not going to be the way he dies. And then he adds to that sort of live for spite, right? Mm-hmm. He decides that he needs to see Cersei again. Like, this is not how he dies. He doesn't die away from her. When he dies, it's with Cersei, because that's just how the fuck it's supposed to be.
Right.
And then right after that is when he hears them really plotting on, like, all right, we're going to fucking rape this bitch before we get too close to Harrenhal, because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he yells sapphires.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets Vargo Hoat running over. And he's just like, what the fuck are you doing? She has to stay maiden. Mm-hmm. She's worth a bag of sapphires.
Mm-hmm.
And when she's like, why did you yell? He says, why did I shout sapphires? Do you think they would have cared if I shouted rape? And she's like, no, not that. Why did you shout at all? And he says, you're hard enough to look at with a nose. Besides, I wanted to make the goat say sapphires. He just can't say,
nope,
I give a shit.
Nope.
He can't admit that he gives a shit. It has to be a joke. Honestly, it just hits a little close to home, because this is like low-key how I roll as well, where I just can't honestly be like, because I don't want, like, I want good things for you. And be like, well, I just wanted to see that idiot do a stupid thing that made him look dumb. That's why. It's not because I have feelings and care.
And then he tells her, I had to pay a debt for the time you saved me. You saved me in the river, and when you knocked all those rocks down. So we're even now. Again, making it transactional. It can't be anything genuine or authentic, or, you know, it has to just be surface shit.
Yeah. Yep.
So then they fucking get there finally. And
he starts laughing when he finds out that they're, like, going to Harrenhal.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh,
yeah,
really?
They don't care for that either.
This place, I keep forgetting just how monstrously huge it is. But basically, Vargo wants to make, like, a display of him, so they make him, like, get off his horse and walk a bunch of the way. The drama. Honestly, sir. Go ahead.
I was going to say, when they get there, you know, when they finally start approaching the castle proper, and Brienne sees all the banners, and she's just like, oh, there's the flayed man, and the Twin Towers, and then there's even a fucking direwolf one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jaime says, all right, that's your fucking wolf banner, all right, but what about the heads that are, like, on stakes next to it?
Yes. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Just like, what's going on there? The walls of Harrenhal were so thick that passing beneath them was like passing through a stone tunnel. They gave way as Jaime staggered past, the rope around his waist jerking and pulling. I give you the Kingslayer, Vargo Hoat proclaimed. And he yanks him and makes him fall in front of these stone steps. And at first, Bolton isn't here. It's this Frey guy that they are talking to.
Fucking Jaime calls it a fury of phrase.
And they are just, first of all, confirming that we aren't with... He says, we trusted the word of Robb Stark and he repaid our faith with betrayal. And Jaime's like, word? What happened? And they start yelling about how they should cut off the Kingslayer's head. Kill him! His head for Ned Stark's! Which is honestly kind of wild, because they were just talking about how Robb doesn't... Like, they don't fuck with him anymore. But his head for Ned Stark feels very much like they fuck with him still.
Yeah, it's really all over the place. It's all these different... I'm assuming they're all Freys. And Brienne is in the middle of trying to explain, you know, how they got to be here. Somebody asks how they even found Brienne, and somebody was like, she was in the middle of trying to murder the Kingslayer. She's like, that's not exactly what was happening.
I love that so much. She's like, I was real mad. I was doing something silly. I was mad.
Right, but I was never going to actually kill him. And they start saying a couple of different things. They're like, one guy is like, the fuck do we care about any of that? And then another guy is like, we should just ransom him to River Run. And then somebody else yells, yeah, kill him for Ned Stark. And then somebody else is like, Castle Rock's got all that gold, though. These motherfuckers are all over the place.
What is it? Unity. No unitedness. Guys, I swear to God, the older I get, the less words I have to work with. I'm telling you,
it will happen to you, too.
It will happen to you! So, this is when he says, let's see.
Bruce
Silence, fool! The king flayereth not for the bear. He is mine. He is no one's should he die. Roose Bolton spoke so softly that men quieted to hear him. And pray recall, my lord, you are not master of Harrenhal till I march north. Mm-hmm. And Jaime says, can this be the Lord of the Dreadfort? When last I heard, my father had sent you scampering off with your tail betwixt your legs. When did you stop running, my lord? Bolton's silence was 100 times more threatening than Vargo Hoth's slobbering malevolence. Pale as morning mist, his eyes concealed more than they told. Jaime misliked those eyes. Yeah, this guy's a threat.
Yeah.
He's scary.
Yeah. Jaime doesn't even realize that this guy is on his side, and he's still fucking shook.
Yep.
Just like yeah. And, fucking all he says, finally, to that remark from Jaime is, you lost a hand. And Jaime says, no, I haven't. Take it around my neck.
Oh, man. He just can't help himself. So, he tells him, take it away. Mm-hmm. I will send it to his lord father. A fine plan. I can't. It just feels so much like they really think, they being Vargo Hoat, really, he really thinks that he's on even playing field with Roose in a way that clearly is not happening.
Right. Also, the idea that, sending that to Tywin Lannister, are you out of your mind?
Right?
I love that Roose just says, a fine plan, because I feel like he is being like, yeah, do that shit.
Yep.
Go ahead, do that. Let's see how that fucking works out for you. If you're dumb enough to think that this is a good idea, then you deserve whatever the fuck is coming for you. Is kind of how I feel like that is.
I think that's exactly it.
It says that the way he says it in the same way that you just be like, oh, it's a fine wine we're having for dinner tonight. But he also says, because earlier Vargo Hoat is talking about, what they're going to do. They're going to ransom him for 100,000 dragons, or maybe we'll fucking take Jaime to Carthark and blah, blah, blah. And Roose has to be like, Karstark is not going to be giving you anything for anything because Robb has separated him from his head. Mm-hmm. So there's that. And they find out about the marriage too, which this is all a lot of new information for Jaime and Brienne. They find out about Joffrey getting married to Marjorie, and Brienne is like, no, you mean Winterfell. She's marrying a Stark. And no, that information is a little outdated.
It is very outdated. I love these reminders of how slowly news travels and how outdated the material could be that certain people are working with. It truly is so scary how much danger you could put yourself in simply because you don't have the latest update. Mm-hmm.
My God, when he tells Jaime, Jaime finally asks, because he's telling Bolton's also letting him know kind of like what happened with the Blackwater and what happened to Stannis, and fucking Jaime says, is there any word about my sister? And fucking Bruce Bolton's like, yeah, she's well. As is your, nephew. Yeah, your nephew is also okay.
Oh, I love that so much. So yeah, the Battle of Blackwater changed all. The Rose and the Lion joined there to shatter Stannis Baratheon's host and burn his fleet to ashes. I warned you, Urswick, Jaime thought, and you, Goat, when you bet against the Lions, you lose more than your purse. And I love, too, like, not just sending his hand, but Vargo Hoat also says, I will tell him he must pay 100,000 dragons or we shall return the Kingslayer to him piece by piece. Sir, genuinely, who the fuck do you think you're dealing with? Just, yeah, it's just really not actually there's no connection to reality in this.
It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't. It seems to me as though the reputation of the Lannisters would suggest that this is not the way to go about doing things. But here we are watching.
We have a whole song called "The Reigns of Castamere" about how this guy dealt with an entire castle town full of people. You are
when
one
he was
dude
still
with
a teenager,
8 shitbags, right? Yeah, he was 19, I think. Yeah. No,
but let's send his in far as Tywin is concerned, his only son, right? Let's send him back piece by piece. Yeah, that's gonna go well. That's gonna go well.
Yeah,
all your dreams will come true if you do that. And then this is when Brienne is just like, Roose is like, we're going to send Jaime to get some medical attention right away because this situation is a mess. And then Brienne is trying to be like, they untie Brienne, and she starts to tell them that they tried to rape her, and Bruce looks at the Brave. These are the Bloody Mummers.
The Bloody Mummers, yeah, and Brave. That same thing.
Yeah, he looks at them and it's just like, this is unbecoming of you.
I am displeased by that and this of Sir Jaime's hand.
And she's telling continuing to talk to Bruce in a way that really suggests that she 100% believes that he is not only still sworn to the North and that they are aligned, but that he is honorable and has any interest in anything that doesn't serve him. Because she's still they took my sword and they took my armor, and all he'll say is, oh, you don't need that here. You don't need any of that. It's all gonna be fine.
Yep.
And and ushers a lady to come and take her someplace to get cleaned up. Which I'm like, it sounds like they're taking her to a very nice room for a lovely bath, but I doubt it.
Well, where do you think they're taking her?
I mean, it could be a lovely room with a nice bath that she's not allowed to come and go from freely. You know what I mean? It could be one of those situations. But she still just doesn't seem to, I don't know. But in her defense, it's a lot happening. It's a lot going on. There's so much that has happened in this war that they have no idea about. They've been completely disconnected from. They don't know. As Bruce says to her, right to her face, it's hard to tell who is a friend and who is a foe these days. Which, the nerve of him saying that, right?
I know, right? Yeah. He really is just out here, trolling everybody. So, then we have Jaime going and being handed over to Qyburn. Yeah. What's up, Qyburn? Been a minute. And
he wants to take this whole fucking arm off.
Yeah. He pulls the linen off of the stump and just sucks in his breath. And Jaime is like, is it that bad? And he's like, give it a couple more days and it could be.
Yeah. The corruption has spread. Which I wish we still talked about disease that way, low-key.
I know, it really does get something across, doesn't it?
It's probably better that we don't, because I feel like the sort of implications that you could then make to a person who has a disease, you know what I mean? It's sort of like a judgment. But for matters of effect, saying that something is a corruption and that it's spreading, that is unmatched.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, agree with you on that one. It's just, I don't know, there's something about the description that gets across the continued activity, the creeping, insidious nature of it, like moving and forward and taking things over. It's just very like ugh. It
lends an air of sort of like being alive and almost sentient, you know, like that something is actively working against you in your own body.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we have lost in the way that we discuss like disease and everything. Even though the actual way that diseases work through our bodies hasn't really changed much, but the way we discuss it has changed greatly. So now it's like much more distant, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Between us and whatever our ailment may be. But Jamie is not letting this motherfucker take his own arm.
No.
So he's like, we're going to take that off the table as an idea. And let's spitball some other ideas.
I love the whole like, well, it's gonna hurt a lot. Well, then I'll scream. That's fine. I'll just scream. And there's something about him saying that he'll just do that I like to imagine Qyburn in his head being like, I mean, I would really prefer not to work on something with their lungs. That's kind of what I'm concerned about. But okay, sure, we'll just.
I love it. Because he escalates. He's like, oh, this is going to suck. And Jamie's like, okay, I'm going to scream. And he's like, no. It's going to suck so much. And Jamie's like, all right, well, I'll just scream super loud. And that's the fucking conversation. And, he straps him down. Well, straps the arm down at least. And they end up deciding that Jamie is going to drink some of this wine. This very powerful wine. I guess it's supposed to help. Strong wine.
Yeah.
It's better than like regular wine.
Yeah, it's I think it's meant to be a what do you call it? Like when you reduce something? Condensed? You know what I'm talking about. Oh my god, why can't I remember the word? You know when you like boil something and it reduces down?
Yeah.
Into a small but it's not just like saying a reduction. It's a concentrate. It's a concentrate. I think it's meant to be like wine that has been concentrated somehow. And that's what like Robert was drinking when he got gored by the boar. They gave him strong wine. So, yeah. Because Qyburn's like, well, I'm going to knock you out with some milk of the poppy. And Jamie's like, the fuck you are. I'm going to wake up without an arm. No.
I love that, what is it? He can't fucking he's got more of the strong wine over his fucking clothes than he does in his mouth. Because his fucking left hand is so useless. And it's just, man. I read that and I was like, Qyburn, you couldn't fucking help him drink that shit? You know how important it is that he gets all of this in his body right now. What are you doing just standing there?
Qyburn is like, look, he wouldn't take milk of the poppy. He can figure out how to drink his own fucking wine. I am washing my hands of this man.
But then the description of what the surgery entails is, it's not like in depth, but it's fucking enough that we understand. He had to go in, and because Jamie refused the full amputation, he just is going to go in and pare down all the rotten flesh. Just cut it out of his body. And then pour boiling wine over it, which...
I know.
And then, Jamie understandably, blacks out, and which is a blessing, I think. And wakes up, and it's just sort of like being sewn together. And it's such a neat job, and Qyburn has left a flap to cover the wrist. And Jamie's watching, and he's like, okay, you've done this before. Like, you've got this particular procedure really down pat. And we find out that this is just how Vargo Hope gets down. Like, he's just chopping wrist off willy-nilly all throughout the kingdom. And he's got to have a lot of practice.
Yeah, I guess so. He also says that he's going to use bread mold, which
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, so he's got some antibiotic knowledge that he's working with, which is somehow like weirdly encouraging to me with my anxiety about this whole thing.
I really enjoyed that was included. Like, it totally didn't have to be, especially considering the type of novel this is. But I really liked that was thrown in. And then we find a little bit about, well, not much, but Jamie is just like, it's weird. Why are you running with the fucking brave companions? Like, what's your story? And we find out that he lost his chain, and that that's all he has to say about that.
Yeah, Jamie doesn't ask anything further about like what happened or anything.
They took my chain, and he begins working on whatever happened to Jamie. Well, not whatever happened to Jamie's eye. Bran fucked his eye up.
Good for him.
But he also, Jamie is like, you know what? I should ask this guy what the fuck's been going on, because he's a maester, and he's going to be like the person who deals with the ravens. Mm-hmm. So what about what's been happening, which I thought was really actually very smart.
Sometimes Jamie decides to think a little bit.
Yeah, he has his moments, right?
Every now and then,
He has his moments.
Lord Stannis was caught between your father and the fire. It said the imp set the river itself aflame. And this is when Jamie thinks about what could have, he says, Jamie saw green flames reaching up into the sky higher than the tallest towers as burning men screamed in the streets. I have dreamed this day before, or dreamed this dream before. It was almost funny. There's something about it that it was almost funny. And I was just like, is it? I don't see that. But
and the reason it's only almost funny is that because there's nobody to share the joke.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been super funny if there had been one other person there.
My guy. No. Bestie, with respect. My brother in Christ.
My brother in Christ. I've been seeing that everywhere, and it kills me. I have been seeing that. I don't know why it took off recently or whenever it happened. Maybe it's old and it's just now making it to my world, but I scream every time I see it.
Yeah, this is one of those that I'm genuinely like, okay. Sure. Like, I don't get it, but it is funny when you see it like in a context where you're like, that's just not the appropriate time to use that. Like, that's the joke.
Yeah, I agree, because the first couple of times I saw it, I was unaware that it was like a thing, and I was just like, what? Mm-hmm. How did Christ get here? What are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Then I realize, oh, okay, this is a bit that people are aware of. So yeah, he tells him about the river of fire, and he asks Jamie about what happened to his eye, and we find out, we're reminded that it's Brienne, and fucking Qyburn says, because Jamie says a wench's gift, and he says, rough wooing, my lord. Which, if I were going to have any like new social media, I would change my name to that. Rough
wooing?
Yes. Yes. It's gonna be my username.
I like it. And he says, you'd better see to her as well. She's still limping on the leg I pricked when we fought. I will ask after her. What is this woman to you? My protector. Jamie had to laugh no matter how it hurt.
Yeah.
I love that it says no matter how it hurt, because that could mean so many things.
Yeah, right? Because like we were just saying like 2 minutes ago how incapable he seems to be when it comes to like acknowledging practically anything that's meaningful,
Yes.
Everything is like a joke with Jamie,
Always.
Everything is on the surface. He just can't let really anything. He has such a hard shield around him,
Mm-hmm.
And Brienne has clearly somehow managed, to get through that, and it feels to me like he absolutely cannot stand that has happened. Like, he's
Agreed.
like low-key resentful that now he has feelings about this fucking bitch. Like, God damn it.
Yep.
100%.
And honestly, I can understand that. I get that way as well sometimes. Where I'm just like, oh, you made me care about this. What? I didn't ask for this. Come on. I don't want this.
It's just such a fucking imposition. Like, how dare
It is. You know, like I had my whole little comfy situation, and then you had to bring up this issue, and now I'm just sitting here like,
right.
Fine.
Now I'm fucking caring about how people feel and shit, you know?
For caring what happens to them. This is a fucking scam, guys.
I'm not interested in any of this.
Indeed. So it ends with, I'm going to put a leech on your eye to drain the bad blood. A leech. Lovely. Lord Bolton is very fond of leeches, Qyburn said primly. Yes, said Jamie. He would be.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's how the chapter ends. Jamie just throwing some shade at Bolton and then...
And, you know, like,
scene.
it feels like, okay, yeah. That's like, it's a really sort of, it's like, it's shade. And also, I wonder, like, if Jamie even has enough information to be making an accurate character assessment. But yet, somehow, it manages to be super accurate, though, right? Because that is him. I mean, we know that he actually likes to have the leeches, like, literally, like, likes to have the leeches applied to him. But beyond that, like, his whole steez is about, like, being a parasite, kind of. You know,
yes,
and aligning himself with whoever has the most power that's going to work out the best for him. And I don't know how much of that Jamie is supposed to know, and how much of it is just sort of an ability to understand who and what Roos is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure where that comes from, where that knowledge comes from. So if it's supposed to be just like, oh, everybody knows that this motherfucker ain't shit. Like, is Roos's reputation so complete that everybody knows he's not worth shit? And if so, how is it that fucking Robb Stark, you know, trusts him so much if everybody knows? So I feel like everybody can't know, right? Maybe.
I don't know.
So I don't know. I don't know if it's... Because it feels to me like I didn't get a lot of people being like, you know who you can't trust for real? That fucking Roose Bolton.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's it. It feels like more like, I don't know. There's a part of me that feels like, honestly, Jamie is more intimidated by Roose than anybody else. And he doesn't like it. So he's just going to fucking be kind of bratty.
So it's just being like shitty in the moment and not
really
like about like Jamie understanding that there's anything, you know, else going on there. Which
I mean, he does have like the nickname the Leech Lord, and I don't know how far north or south that's traveled. So maybe it's just him being like, yeah, I heard about that, you know?
Yeah. Also then, I mean, I don't know what the connotation of leeches are in this world, but like it definitely has a negative connotation in the way we speak now. Mm-hmm. So it could just be a regular fucking insult. Just,
yeah, that's true.
Without much, without having much to do with anything else.
So before we wrap, first of all, I want to mention something from the notes because I just went over and looked at them. Austin, once again, I did not read them ahead of time. Apologies. But he says something here that makes me so irritated. He tells us, Brienne tells a despondent Jaime to stop acting like a craven. Another small yet interesting change. In the show, they have her tell him to stop acting like a woman.
Ew.
Ew, indeed. I don't remember that, but Brienne would never, okay? I am not buying that she has this kind of attitude where she, looks down on women because she wants to be masculine. And why wouldn't you just say, stop being craven?
Right.
Why are you turning it into a woman? What the fuck?
Oh,
and you're having a woman say it. What? Why though? For what?
Because a woman like Brienne hates women. The reason she likes what she likes can't be because that is what speaks to her, and those are the goals she has for herself and the things that are important to her. It has to be because she hates being a woman.
Yep.
So she hates being a woman, ergo she hates women, and that would be an insult that would be on the tip of her tongue at all times.
It's just so fucking, like, flat. What a one-dimensional thing you've got going on in your head about her, if this is what you think she'd say. Like, she would never. And I stand by that forever.
Has she said anything like that anywhere else in the books? I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, I'm not, like, the best
Not that I
person.
recall. No. Like, it's part of her being knightly is that she tries to, like, keep her commentary and tone respectful all the time, above reproach. And that's just a complete sour note. That doesn't make any sense to me. So thank you, Austin, for telling us that. But also, don't thank you.
What do you think about the idea that she thinks that that's something that a man would say, and that she's mimicking that? Do you think that's something that she's heard men say as she's been, like, spending time around them, wanting to learn to fight and be a knight, and that is just sort of something she would repeat? And I'm not agreeing with that choice the show made at all. I'm just wondering.
I mean, I could definitely, like, she's certainly going to have heard it before as an insult. Right. And she's certainly going to probably, like, understand the impact that it would have on Jaime to hear that flung at him. Mm-hmm. But I still don't believe she would say it that way.
Right. I think that is probably what also went into them making that change, is they were thinking, what would a man absolutely hate having hurled at him?
Right.
Well, if you call him a woman, that'll fucking do it.
Yep.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter whose mouth you put the words in, without, like, any consideration of the character that you're making say this thing. Because, again, it's easier for them to... I mean, Jaime's already centered because this is his POV, but, like, in that moment, it's all about Jaime. It's not about Brienne at all. And the writers of the show struggled in so many ways.
Yeah.
That it just seems like learning that tidbit, it feels like, of course they did.
Yeah. It's just truly, like, this is the stuff that I want to point to about how, yes, there's lots of rape and misogyny in the books, but the show did a different thing with it. They brought their own misogyny and added to a book that uses that as a sort of, like, setting of the atmosphere that somebody like Brienne would have to live in. Mm-hmm. And they made it a feature and even put that in her mouth. Like, ew. Gross. Gross, gross, gross. So, moving on. I want to say hi to a new patron. We have one new patron this week. So, welcome, new patron, Carrie Whitlock!
Hello!
Welcome, Carrie. Thank you very much for becoming a patron. We appreciate you and hope that you stick around for a little while. Go up in those Discord channels, the Discord streets, and have some chats with folks. And for those interested, I've been reading Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, and I have made a channel, or a thread, under the books channel, where I am sharing my thoughts as I continue through the series. I'm on Oathbringer right now. These are such long books. I truly was not ready. But I also have my earbuds in so much that I got through 65 hours so far in, like, the past month. So, but yeah, if you're interested in, like, reading what I think and having some chats with it, of course, no spoilers, please. But there's also a, like, channel dedicated to the Cosmere, the Brandon Sanderson universe. Mm-hmm. And if you want to talk spoilers, you can go there. So I think that's about it. Is there anything else you want to mention?
No, ma'am.
All right, kids. Well, thank you all again so much for listening. And please consider becoming a patron. Patreon.com/unspoiled. It would be a huge help. I've had a lot of, like, people sign up after putting out the call a couple weeks ago, and it's super appreciated. But a lot of people sign up for, like, 1 week and then bounce. Or 1 month, I guess it is. So it's like I get a little bit of a spike and then it's just gone.
Yeah.
Which I understand why people do it that way. Don't get me wrong. But also, if anybody out there, can spare $5 a month, it does add up quite a lot to me. So I would really appreciate the consideration. All right, everyone. Well, thank you again. We love you. Until next time. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Jaime and Jon, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.